After going through divorce, bankruptcy, and breast cancer, each one of those transitions and traumas really cracked me from the inside out. And with each crack, I got closer and closer to my authentic self. I was very successful, a lot of achievements. I just really love who I am now. And it's just more of like a gratitude, right? And that's the beauty of this season of silence, which breast cancer gave me that gift. It really forced me to sit with myself and see the ugly, dark sides. I'm just so proud of myself for staying committed to get to this other side.
We often envy the lives of athletes, but what happens when it comes crashing down? Today, we've got a special guest who went from a career as a pro hockey player and then all of a sudden a shift and went through some pretty dark days, a divorce, bankruptcy, battling with breast cancer. And she has lived to tell the tale and has not only survived, but thrived as a result. It's so great to have you with us, Janine, and welcome to the Living Richly podcast.
Yeah, thank you. Excited to be here.
It's so, of course, you and Wendy know each other and you've been connected prior to today. And so it was,
we met on a plane.
Yeah, you've been on a plane or two.
Long story there.
So maybe I want to just jump right into this, to this story of yours. Had a chance to, we've been connected on social media for a number of years and watched some of that. But here you are, you go from, again, talk about just the playing pro hockey to all of a sudden going through so many of these life upheavals, challenges. Maybe walk us through a little bit of what that journey was like for you.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, I was everything was rose colored to me. I'm a naturally innate happy person. So when I would see some of my teammates go through stressful times, that didn't ever occur to me. Like I'd play the game. If we lost, we're going out to the bar later. Everything's rosy, you know, and I loved people and I loved sports. But looking back, I realized I really thrived in structure and routine. And I thrive, like literally you just got to show up and play the game you loved. And then after my playing had stopped a little, it was kind of like, holy shit, what do I do now? Now I'm in charge of my schedule. You're basically told when to eat, what to eat. Like, don't ever feed me chicken parm. I never want to eat it again. But the structure part, right? And then you're thrown into the world and you're like, oh, really? This is all I've ever known.
So what was, as you started to navigate that, and of course you're dealing with lack of structure, and I know that you do a lot of work now, even with pro athletes and others that are coming out of professional sports, with life after whatever their role is. I know you've had conversations with coaches and former coaches and other players and all of that. What is that like to go from the spotlight to not having any of that in your place?
Yeah, I mean, it really is an identity issue for us athletes. I have had Chris Pronger on, 19 years in the NHL. I've had Claude Julien on as a coach. He even talks about his struggles behind closed doors. Mark Mathot, and it really is, when the cheering stops, we're so validated by as an athlete. Like the name on the back of the jersey carries you through your entire life. You get recognized in the grocery store. You get, you're doing autograph signing. The men even more in the NHL versus what I did, but we still did it, and I thrived off of it. So when that's stripped away, it's like a layer is taken off, and then you're exposed. It's almost like you're naked to the world, right? And you need to recreate who you are. So the identity issue is really big. And the one piece of advice that I would love everyone to know is sports are what you do. They're not who you are. And if our younger athletes can start to adapt to this mindset now, they're going to thrive so much later when they face those transitions. Yeah.
We talk a lot about identity, and we talk on the show, and we certainly have many conversations around the notion of you are not what you do. And then it's finding that for yourself and being able to figure that out. How would you define victory when you look at where you are now?
At which stage of my life?
Where you were? Yeah, well, throughout the stages, because I imagine it would have changed for you.
I have very strong masculine energy. I am like a bull in a china shop, and I always have been. And when I really look back at my achievements, literally, I mean, growing up, my mom, I remember making the bed with her, and I talk about this in my TED Talk. And we were putting the base sheets on the bed. And I remember I was on the left side and she was on the right. And my mom said to me, Janine, don't be afraid to take risks. I never took enough risks. But little did she know that piece of advice was going to stick with me forever. Because the years that followed, I literally landed a full scholarship to the University of New Hampshire, became the assistant captain, Division I ice hockey, graduated Dean's List with a Bachelor of Science in Business Marketing, went on to play in the National Women's Hockey League, ran 2 half marathons, a full marathon, throw in a sprint triathlon, and then I lost 30 pounds in 8 weeks to compete in a bodybuilding figure competition where I took first place and first overall. Like literally, when I look back, I have muscled my way through life, and that was my superpower. Sports was my superpower. As soon as I felt any type of defeat, I gave myself a goal, and then my external validation is coming through, and I'm getting it from spades. Everyone, you're the champion, so you're getting all that love, and it really struck me when I look back. I'm like, ooh, that was a cape that I was wearing. That was my bag of tricks, right?
Yeah. And then you've got the mindset piece that kind of ties into that. So if you think about all of those things that you just listed, how did your mindset play into that evolution of going through all of that?
Yeah, well, I didn't have the awareness that I do now. Like after going through divorce, bankruptcy, and breast cancer, each one of those transitions and traumas really cracked me from the inside out. And with each crack, I got closer and closer to my authentic self. Like I wish I loved myself now the way I was in my 20s. I look back and I kind of cringe, a little bit louder. Always like kind of look at me when I look back, not trying to be, but that was my personality. Makes me cringe a little now, but yeah.
I think we can all relate to that. Going back when we were younger.
You talk about that, the kind of clinking through and getting to that place of that acceptance. We use the language of radical self-acceptance on the show here, and we talk about it oftentimes. What is that? When I say radical self-acceptance, what does radical self-acceptance look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, when you say that, I just actually was covered in chills. I feel emotional about it because I've been doing so much work. I'm going to get emotional. I've been doing so much work behind closed doors. I didn't expect this to happen. Sorry.
That's good.
And I just feel sad for my younger self. I was very successful, a lot of achievements. I just really love who I am now. And it's just more of like a gratitude, right? And that's the beauty of this season of silence, which breast cancer gave me that gift. It really forced me to sit with myself and see the ugly, dark sides. And they're not even ugly. I shouldn't even use that word. It was more just what was keeping me stuck. But I always had this feeling that I was made for more. And then I'm just so proud of myself for staying committed to get to this other side, because it's like this beautiful space and nobody wants to sit with it. And if everyone was just willing to do the work, the heart work, not muscle your way through, not all the other stuff, it's a really gratifying, peaceful state. And then you look around the world and now I see so many people, they're rushing through their day or they're honking and they don't open the door, pick up the garbage. It might not be yours, but it's your planet. Like, why aren't we all contributing to the collective consciousness? And it just, when you have that bird's eye view, you can't see it when you're in it. And I get it. And so I have sympathy and compassion for people when I see where they're at. And I recognize like where an ego is present or they're operating from just an old system that has carried them through their lives. I can compassionately, empathetically see them and not feel the need to correct them. I feel like sometimes when we are always correcting each other, we're still growing ourselves and we want to be heard and be the professor kind of. And it's like, that's the last thing anyone needs when they're going through that shit, right? Yeah. So I just feel like you just cracked my heart wide open. I wasn't expecting that. But yeah, it's just a calmness. It's like this, inner peace when there's all this chaos going around you. But a calmness and I feel like my roots are just firmly planted and they're just growing down. I think one of the things that I love that you just said is the season of silence.
Yeah, because, me too. I'm glad you jumped
in. Yours was very much a forced season of silence where you had no choice but to sit with all of that discomfort as you went through that entire journey. And we just talked about this in one of the last episodes we recorded around how uncomfortable it is for people to sit in that because we're so used to the rush, 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 go go, 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 Amazon Prime, I need it in 24 hours. And we don't allow ourselves that opportunity to just sit and be. And that's really where a lot of our growth happens.
And
but
it doesn't
it's very
happen
hard
overnight.
No.
And everybody wants it right away. And like you said, it's not like Amazon Prime. And that's one thing I really realized with my husband. I would come into the kitchen and I'd be like, I don't know what's happening. It's not working. And I'd be like bawling my eyes. And he's like, I don't think this stuff is working. But look, this is the process. This is walking through your shit, and it's emotional, and you're going to feel kind of crazy, and it's up and down. And then like one day you just wake up and you're him or her. You stepped into this future self and that's the whole, like, who do you want to be, but how do you want to feel? And when you make those choices in your day-to-day habits and rituals, and you are that person, you just wake up one day and you're like, holy shit.
Eric talks about, when the whole, really this living richly model that we have was something that was birthed out of work that we were all doing. Eric was doing, myself and our other business partner, we were working on. But, he talks about the notion of when this all of a sudden one day it dropped like this lead, and all this, it wasn't like that moment was the done moment, but it was the journey of all this work suddenly just landed. And there was, and he was, I can remember the text that morning from him. He's like, dude, and he's just, right?
Well, as you're talking, I can feel chills. Yeah.
And it's, you're so right. It's one of the things that if I can encourage those of you that are even watching or listening is allow that time, stop being in such a rush to figure it all out, and let the journey just unfold as it needs to unfold, step by step, little by little, as you start to experience that. And that's exactly what would have been going on for you.
And the world receives you. So my big takeaway with my TEDx talk is life's currency is showing up. And I do believe, magic happens when you do this type of work, because life shows up for you because you show up for it. It meets the effort that you put in. So if I go 80, the world goes 80. If I go 100, you get 100. And it's like your body. Treat it like a garbage can. It's not going to work. It's not, when you treat people with care and compassion, they show up for you, right? When you challenge yourself to learn new skill sets and new ways of thinking, life shows up for you. So I don't believe it's time or money. This is the true currency that as humans we value. And I know your story is quite intense. Through that.
And the currency around that, because we're all parents here. And the currency around that, and having our children see us walk through those journeys, having our children see us cry, go through the hard times, not always put on a brave face, know that it's okay when we've fucked things up, when we're not on the right path, that we're changing paths. And I just think it's such a powerful lesson, because there is no free app ever that can teach you what that kind of life experience is, and being able to pass that down. Because you're an amazing mom. I know you got 3 littles. And I just think
I don't know, some would say I work too much.
But I just think it's such a great lesson as parents that we're able to pass on to our kids.
That's why I remember when you were going through your journey and going through the hard shit, and I was like so proud of you from the outside, because I know you've got 2 strong girls, watching every move. And I was like, yeah, Wendy. I was secretly cheering you on, just because it takes a lot of bravery and courage to go through that, right? And to make that, because then it's one thing to make the decision, but then you have to sit with all the baggage that comes up, and the emotions and all the things. And it's powerful for your kids to see you do that, because they're going to go through their own journey one day, right?
I just think it's such a great lesson for, any parent that's listening around, be okay with being uncomfortable, be okay with let your kids see that, because that is just such a great learning tool for them on how to navigate through that. And it's okay that you don't have to have it all figured out. Like, I told my oldest daughter when we were having some conversations last week, she was upset about something. I'm like, I'm 46 and I still don't have it all figured out.
Exactly.
And that's okay. And sailing through those highs and lows of days when you're feeling really great, and other days where you're like, I just can't make this work or whatever. And letting them see that as they grow through their journey. So,
you were talking about worth and feeling enough, and it really is this, a lot of us suffer from imposter syndrome. It's like, who am I to do this? But what I'm really trying to reframe in my mind is, obviously I've challenged myself to go through a lot of discomfort, but like discomfort and imposter syndrome, let's go right at it. Let's just drive right into it instead of shying away, because you want to get to that other side. It's the quickest way to go, right?
That's so absolutely true. When we talk about living your best life, when we talk about the whole kind of message of living richly, and we know that there's sometimes people will kind of look at that and go, oh, that's easy for you to say when you got your life together, which is why we've all taken time to share our own stories, to share our journey. And as people listen in on those episodes, they are some of the most commented on and watched episodes as we've been as vulnerable as we can be in the moment as we share our stories. Here you are, somebody who is, again, you've had the pinnacle of success. You've kind of done what a lot of people would look at and go, man, what a life. And then you go through this trifecta of challenge. And most people, if they had to deal with one of those three things as a battle, here you are, you're dealing with, three major challenges, and I'm sure many other challenges, but these three major challenges, maybe just highlight one of them and talk about what is like to go through that. What was that experience like? And I'll let you pick which one of those three, or maybe they all tie together.
Well, I can give you really shortly, quick one of each. So divorce taught me I did exactly what society told me to do. Went to school, got married, got a job. Bankruptcy taught me to listen to my gut and intuition. I knew we should have never opened that second bar studio. I felt the nudges, ignored the signs completely. And breast cancer taught me to surrender, rest, and reflect, and to slow down, that there is a space that exists where I can be wildly successful, but not at the expense of myself.
Okay, I'm not letting you go on that one, the slow down piece, because you have a lot of energy, right? You're like, come in. You're here, you're ready to go. And
that's can you imagine meeting us on a plane at 6 a.m. in the morning?
No, 6
flying to Arizona
on a plane with the two of you on it. I'm grabbing a parachute.
I'm sure everyone was pissed off in the back of the plane because we would not stop talking.
So and certainly, listen, I've gotten to know as I've gotten to know Wendy and in her my life, she is also somebody. I laughed yesterday at the gym because she gets in and she does the opening at the gym, and she's again this. And I leaned to two people that were standing next to me, and I said, 5 minutes ago, she was saying, I don't want to get out of bed. Right? Like it's this
situational extrovert.
It's professional. You turn it on, right? Like when I was going through my bankruptcy, I remember bawling my eyes out in the back where we were parked in the back of the building, full class. And I just wiped my tears off, walked in, and to me, that was being professional. I wasn't faking it. The guests that were coming to my fitness studio at the time, it's not their job to coddle me and take care of me. They were paying to come have an experience at my studio. It wasn't the right time or place. So that to me was being professional, not authentic. But and then get back in the car and cry the whole way home.
So let's go back to this, whether it's I love that you highlighted the word silence from what you said before, or this pause and reflect. How does the energy person step back? What are some of the things that you do to allow yourself those moments of pause and reflection?
I love the early morning. It's like my most favorite time. I call them my magic mornings, where I will get up. I will journal first because I need to get out all the ideas that are circling on my head. And then I will meditate. And then I will journal what came up in my meditation. I used to just meditate, then journal, but I realized I couldn't drop into my heart center as fast as I could is when what's her name? Gabby Bernstein says, rage on the page. So I get it all out. Fuck Greg. He was such an asshole yesterday. Or whatever's coming up for me. Or,
love you, Greg.
No, I'm just kidding, honey. No, but like whatever, but that's just human nature, natural. Yeah. Whatever frustrations, I get it out. And then I light my candles, and I've got a few crystals. Greg, when the crystals came in the house, he was like, I think we're taking this a little bit too far. And then I'll meditate. And I've gone anywhere from like 10 to 70 minutes. And I really realized it's not about the length of meditation, it's the consistency. So showing up, even if it's 5-10 minutes, you drop in so much quicker and you have so much more. So I'll meditate, and then move my body before I check my phone.
Isn't it fascinating? Because we just had this conversation and to hear you talk about those rituals, morning rituals, and how it just seems
game changer.
And it just seems like no matter who we speak with, that those practices are. Well,
I've got 3 children and a dog. I mean, and then stuff comes up. Come 5 o'clock, last thing I'm thinking about is wanting. First of all, you get no quiet time in the house because everyone's going to sports or whatever. Yeah. So you really have to create a space and an environment that feeds that side of you. So like I made like a nice little spot in front of I turn on my fire pit, and I got the candles. I went to like it's called on an Otherworld treasure. I don't know. It's a shop down near across from the downtown, anyways, where it's got crystals, and I really let myself kind of be guided and tap into the spiritual side. And I made it a place that I was excited to go to. You can't just sit in a dark hole in your basement and feel inspired, right? So I had to change my environment. That was step one, so that I could step into that energy. That because my energy is huge. So if there's if the guy was like, you are like a lightning bolt, you need to sit in pink Himalayan salt every night before you go to bed. I was like, okay. Greg's like, what are you doing now? I was like, pink Himalayan salt, apparently I'm a lightning bolt. But looking back, I see how I've unwinded this really tight. And that's why like as a society, we get 2 weeks vacation, or depending on people's jobs. Yeah. That's not enough to unwind. So if you're not doing a daily practice of some sort to help unwind yourself, no wonder people are walking around angry, burnt out, frustrated. They have no bandwidth. We can't, like, they're trying to pour from an empty cup. Yeah. And so in this process of getting silent, like I couldn't muscle my way through breast cancer. So walking and meditation became my alliances. And then like I've probably filled 7 journals since that when I decided that year. Like I remember, as someone who is so fit and so strong, I remember looking in the mirror and just not even recognizing the girl looking back at me. And it was like, no one's coming to save you. When we're in the dark place, we want the light to come, but no one's coming. You've got to create that space for you. So the morning routine to me is everything.
You just gave me chills thinking about that.
Oh, because you've been there.
I've been there, but my one of my daughters is going through some stuff right now, and I just had that same conversation with her. No one is coming to save you, not in a way of being unsupportive, but at the end of the day, we're all responsible for our decisions, our actions, our behaviors. Yes, we can be open to that guidance, but nobody can force us to go through that. So you creating that environment, I love that you were so intentional, because a lot of times, and I know you've heard this before, people will be like, I've tried meditating, it doesn't work.
Yeah, but where are you meditating?
Where are you meditating? I've tried journaling. It doesn't work. It's not for me. Yeah. I've tried reading. I'm not a reader. And you just set the stage perfectly on, are you creating your environment? Are you being intentional? And I love that you mentioned your phone, because everybody uses their phone as an alarm. Everybody has their phone right beside them. It is so habitual to just pick up your phone, start scrolling the gram, looking at everything else. And that
your phone can be spiritual suicide. Like it literally is 100%. It's calling your name. Like one thing I did is I hid, and I work with a lot of athletes. So I asked them to put their social media notifications on like the second or third page and put them in a folder. So when you first open your phone, it's not like red, right? That's instant anxiety triggering. Yep. And then now I've lost my priorities and I'm on to what everybody else needs. But so you got to prioritize yourself first. And then my cup's full. Guess what? You end up having the best day. You can roll with it. There's room for spontaneity because you're not like, shit, I got to go to the gym. I never worked my body out. Oh, now I'm experiencing shame because I didn't read. I didn't journal. I say I want to do this. So you're feeling this tug of war on the inside and this constant. So if you're very intentional, you don't have to do a long time, dude. 10 minutes.
So let's talk about that. Yeah. Your morning routine. Now, it might be different for some people, and maybe yours is different too, where some days you have more time but on average, what would you say? Like, what time do you wake up in the morning? Yeah. And how long is your routine?
Yeah. Sometimes I just 4:30, my eyes pop open. I've been really kind of trusting my own internal clock. And actually, it's funny when you lean into that, your body just naturally wakes up. So sometimes, I've gotten up at 3:33 before. I get really weird numbers in my life. Like I'm like 111, 222, but I just get up because I've been told from some podcasts that I've listened to that it's like when spirit is strongest, when the whole world is kind of quiet around us. So the energy's not. So I would tap in early. So let's just say, let's be realistic. 5 a.m. most consistently, if I'm not just waking up on my own. Would meditate, go to the gym, and then I'm home to help the kids get their lunches together, get them out the door. But then I've done a lot in that little period. Yeah. If I have time, I'll put the reading in like a bath time at night. One thing I've realized, I've always been really great at the morning routine, but then I had to start creating a nightly routine as well. And it's also this intentional planning. Like really successful people are highly intentional, setting boundaries, like, kind of starting to say no. And I was a yes girl. I didn't like to ruffle the feathers. I didn't avoided conflict like the plague. And now I can have the difficult conversation or just say, no, it is a complete sentence, right?
Yeah. We talk about it all the time. You are the author of your story, and you get to write the chapters, right? And again, the notion of no one else is coming to save you. You are the one that gets to set those boundaries, determine all this. And often the biggest, go back to what that is, the reason why we don't do those things is because we don't have that internal, the radical self-acceptance, the idea that I am good enough as I am, and I'm okay. And when we first accept ourselves, then we can start to say no to all of those.
Well, and it doesn't happen.
Voices.
It doesn't happen like that though. So everyone wants confidence, but confidence is built in the uncomfortable stages, right? You can't just plug in. But what I do believe is, for me, wholeheartedly, I truly believe I'm powered by the human spirit. Like that is, I've always had big feelings. And that's why I think I've been really good at getting over adversity, because no matter what happens to me, trust me, I've had dark days where I haven't gotten out of bed, or I've had periods where I drank too much and just was avoiding dealing with it, or whatever. I've done it all. Trust me, I am by no means perfect. But I keep showing up.
Well, I'm really nervous because, and I really appreciate, I am going to be reaching out to Greg and asking him to go for beers because,
the stories he could tell.
Yeah. Oh, I can imagine. I already know, but because I can already picture there's going to be a part of our house now where Wendy's like, hey, we need to make a crystal room and salt room and all of this, right? We're going to be doing this. But that ties into the power of, and the importance of, I guess is actually the word I should use, the importance of the community, the people you surround yourself, whether it's a significant other, whether you're, some people that are listening, they have that, they're trying to learn how to live richly as a couple. In other cases, they might be single. They haven't found that person yet. But so whether it's that significant other or your community of friends, talk to me a little bit about the importance of the community you have and you surround yourself with to helping you live out the life that you're wanting to live out.
Well, I didn't see it when I was younger, but what I can see very clearly now, because if your belief is lower or you haven't healed some past trauma, you don't have the willpower to say no.
Right.
And if your environment is negative, or you can easily, it's like somebody wants to stop drinking. That's not my issue, but if I can say no, like I was at an event yesterday, it's a perfect example, and we were speaking and they were handing out drink tickets, but I knew I had a very busy day today. Normally that would be like but we'll have a glass of wine, it won't bug you. But I was like, no, you were on this mission to this, that one glass of wine is not going to make you feel good today. And there was no question in my mind. I didn't feel bad about it. There was no back talk. My younger self would have been like, because I love to be the life of the party.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
Right. But I really think because when people have not done the healing work, they don't have the willpower. So if your environment is negative, you're going to get sucked in. No matter, you could say no 50 times, you're going to say yes on 51. Because if you have that asshole friend that keeps peer pressuring you because their self-esteem is so low and doesn't see your worth, it's just a vicious cycle. It's not easy to divorce your family or friends. It's not an easy place. Because when we're younger, it's all about attachment. Yeah. And we will abandon authenticity for attachment every single time if we have not developed these skill sets. It's just human nature. I've listened to psychology podcasts about it. And so if somebody is still needing that attachment, they will cave in every time. So surrounding yourself with great people. How do you do that? If you're constantly in the same routine, I would recommend do something different. Go to a new event. If you are a reader, join a book club, because you're going to meet like-minded people that most likely are going to have a similar mindset than you, right? So, or if you're just trying to explore, like get out, try something, get a good dance group, whatever. You love dancing. If that's a passion of yours, whatever. Art, hiking, those people are going to have some sort of connection with you, and they're going to give you an outside perspective. And our world wants us, like, unfortunately, I don't think people intend for you to be small, but their light is dimmed. So they don't want, if you shine too bright, it makes them feel nervous and you're going to change and now you're going to rattle their world. They don't mean to, but it's by default that they react to it, right?
Yeah.
Because I've definitely gotten a lot of feedback. Well, as I've gone through these steps to my ascension spiritually, I've definitely been like, who are you to be a speaker? Who are you?
Right.
Yeah. And going through everything that you've gone through, I don't want to assume, but you've probably seen some of those relationships, friendships, community shift as you...
Well, I've seen friendships that I've used to feed a negative side of myself as well. Like, we call the friend that we want to say what we want to hear, right? Or it's like, I know I'm not going to call Chantel because she's going to tell me like it is. I'm going to call Sarah because she's going to tell me this is a great idea.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Until we have that honest conversation. And I always say, like, I have my formula of steps where that people go through in order, because I find a lot of people don't know. We hear all these great motivating conversations. Actually, here, one sec. but we don't know how to navigate it. I actually created this for my talks. And step number 1 is surrender. So like I always tell people, let's pick the one area of your life that you're struggling with.
Yep.
Okay. Let's acknowledge it. Let's just surrender. It is what it is. And then we go into introspection, right? So let's reflect on whatever it is that's bugging you. So, and from there you go to follow the nudges. So I find we are so, our world is so busy that we don't tune into the whispers of our soul, right?
Yeah.
Those internal nudges. And that's what led me to my TED Talk. That's what led me to everything that I'm doing now. And then you take action. Releasing control is the big one. We are mass manipulators. As humans, we want to control the outcome so badly. Think about when you try to text someone and they don't respond. You're like, well, I'm just going to like maybe like them on Facebook and then find them on Instagram. And you're like, why? It's been 2 days. Why haven't they? And it's like, I've taken like a bird's eye view. I'm like, oh my God, that was like 5-stage Klingon. Why did you reach out to that person so many times? Right. But we try to control, and that is what kills manifestation. I truly believe every time. And then leaving room in your schedule for magic. There's no room for spontaneity if you're back to back to back to back. There's no magic. There's no like, no, you know what? I have an extra hour. My gut is saying go left instead of right to that next meeting. And then I keep showing up. So those are the 7 steps that I always share with people. But, and that has to be something that you do over and over and over again. And when we just consistently show up, life shows up for you.
Life shows up and your community shows up.
Yes.
Right? Like attracts
it's the ripple
like.
effect. Everybody wants to have a great community, but no one wants to be a good neighbor. What's with that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like if you go help your neighbor. If you see them struggling with their laneway, shovel it for them. Like you see garbage, pick it up.
Yeah.
It's amazing how so many of these lessons have been lessons that they're obvious to us, right? What our parents used to say, you want to be a good, or you want good friends, be a good friend. Right? This idea of how you show up is what will come back to you. Absolutely. I think we all believe that. Talk a bit about mindset, because I know that's a lot of where you go in your talks and what you challenge. We had one of the most powerful, Ben Bergeron, and again, I really encourage, if you haven't, to take a look at his book, Chasing Excellence, because it is a book around mindset and mindset among elite athletes. But he talks about one of the most, again, I've shared this a number of times on the episode, and we when he was on, he certainly talked about this, the 5 levels of mindset he talks about. He says that there's the victim mindset, which is the lowest level possible. Then there's the pessimist, and he says then there's the optimist. And a lot of us want to achieve the optimist mindset. He says that's not where we want to be. He says the next level up is the realist. And the realist is the one who recognizes no matter what is happening externally,
they're not attached to their emotions.
They're not attached to it. It's not, it just is.
Yeah.
And now what are you going to do about that? And then he says the highest mindset is the warrior mindset. The warrior mindset is bring on the adversity. I'm ready to conquer. I'm ready to challenge. You can't live in the warrior mindset because it takes that extra energy. So you live in the realist mindset, and when needed, you jump in for challenge into the warrior mindset and then back into
when needed.
It's a really neat idea. So that's how he unpacks mindset.
I love it.
Maybe just, how do you talk about mindset? What do you think of? And when you're talking athletes and all of that, how do you go through this notion of mindset? I love that you have props. This is amazing.
It's good. It's very important.
Great.
So, I mean, as someone, I've always had an attraction towards like positive affirmations, or like I have notebooks that I found when I was younger where I was like copying basically like famous sayings, and I was like, oh God, I was doing this at a really young age. Sayings on the wall. I don't work out to music. I work out to like motivational videos.
Okay.
And it's funny when I do on my YouTube series where it's transitioning to life after sports, you know, like I was talking to my friend Kerry Joseph, he's a coach with the Seattle Seahawks. He played in the CFL, and he's like, Janine, I do the exact same thing. And more as I talk to these people behind closed doors, they're constantly feeding that part of them. But when I think about mindset, I have 2 cans here, right? So we never have control of what's going to happen outside of us, but we do have control of what we do in this. When you have a strong mindset, can you squeeze that?
Yep.
No, external factors, you're good.
Yep.
What if you have a weak mindset and life comes at you? What happens?
I get to crush it.
No, yeah, go girl. External factors, you go right down to that victim mindset, but this is where the warrior lives, right? And the realist. And it's just such an easy visual that I find.
It's a great visual.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't realize that. I even brought you guys, I do this too. Sorry, I'm not on your mic here, but you'll notice this is a daily practice. I don't wake up with a bulletproof headspace every day. Some days it's harder to get out of bed. Some days I jump out, but I have constant affirmations on my body. Like this one says warrior. It's a necklace. This one says tiger. That's my nickname. And my tokens, like I don't give out business cards. I actually give out tokens, and I brought one for each of you. It's keep showing up token. But these are my reminders when I'm not, because mentally our emotions can hijack us.
Yeah.
And then, right. And then you take the wrong action and you're out of alignment and you lose all this time. You know, it's like when you eat one donut, might as well eat 24. Let's not do that. Right. So I use a lot of these little things to keep me into a peak state or remind me, you know.
Well, and I love the visual aspect of it, because as humans, we are very visual, and those tangible things that we can hold on to, that we can see, that we can connect with, that we can touch, feel, all that kind of stuff, ties us back to bringing us back to our roots and what's important to us.
Well, it pulls you towards your vision.
Yes.
So it's like when I speak to some of the young athletes, I don't have it on now. But I usually have what's called a worthy wand on. Have you seen those necklaces? But I'll gift one to someone in the crowd, because when we're not healed and we're doing the work, we need that external power to pull us forward, and this pulls me forward. Seeing like when I see the word tiger, it's visceral for me. So it's like, find your word, find your thing that pulls you forward. I mean, when I did my fitness competition, I cut my head off and put it on an oxygen model on the fridge.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, can't eat that. Nope, can't achieve that without that. But like whatever it does, and we've done vision boards, we talked about all that stuff. So I use those tools when you're growing through this and you can't internally muster up that courage or that action, you have the external ones to help you out.
Yeah. And we had Olympian, who is a Canadian Olympian speed skater, and he was on the show, and he talked about how before the Vancouver, even when he was young, years and years before when he was really just starting into speed skating, one of the things that he did is he basically created his own visual of him standing on the podium in Vancouver, and there he stood on the podium in Vancouver as a gold medal Olympian, and that power of setting that out there and making that statement. I know for me, I've got a bunch of tattoos, but I've got this one called this Grace one, which was the very first tattoo I ever got, and the meaning behind it was significantly different when I got it done to what it is today. Today, it's a constant reminder to show grace to myself. And show grace to others, and to be able to extend that sense of just stop being so hard on your stuff. Start being so just like give yourself some compassion.
Do you have
show
military
yourself
background?
Some compassion. No,
or anything like that.
No. I was a minister.
Okay.
I was a preacher for a lot of years, and that's where that initially came out of. And I was the minister of a biker's church is where I spent a lot of my years. But the notion of coming to that place of being okay with who I am, that stopped the ability of others to dictate who I am.
Well, a lot of people always ask me, like, what's the Tiger Method? And it is a mindset and resiliency program, but it stands for Together in Grace, Everything Rises. And if you can't, it starts first. If you can't extend grace to yourself, you'll never extend it to anyone else. So that's where this radical self-love and self-compassion is so key, because it starts here and then it ripples out. Words, right? And that's why it's powerful. That's why it's powerful for your daughters to see what you went through, because that extension of radical self-love to get to that other side that you had to go through, you're modeling it. You can tell it till you're blue in the face, but if they see it, that's way more powerful. Yeah.
Well, and same with your kids too, right? With everything that you've gone through.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
We tell ourselves a lot of stories. Right? We create a ton of stories. What's one story that you had to rewrite to become who you are today?
Ooh.
How's that for a deep question?
Deep one.
When you think of all the stories that we've told you, and I'll use it for me, for sure. One of those was that story of I am okay exactly as I am. One of my big superscripts was that everyone I welcome into everyone I embrace or hold close to leaves. And I went through a lot of, and again, I shared this in my story. I had my family there's lots of death. There's lots of people that have gone. My mom passed passed away from breast cancer. I had a daughter who died. I had a number of situations that went on in my life, and I had this script that I can't let anyone in. And so I would, for as long as that script held true, I would, as people got close, I sabotage. I would do things in order to protect myself. Rewriting that script to say, that's not true. I've got all kinds of people in my life who love me deeply, and I love them deeply, who haven't left. I've got 2 beautiful daughters. I've got incredible friends and family. And now I've got the love of my life, right? And these people that are in my life that embrace me and accept. So I rewrote that script. So
I love that.
What about for you? What would be a script?
What was coming up for me when you were speaking was, I've always been a really great individual performer. So as soon as I feel that external threat, I get cold and I shut off and I don't let others help. Or it's like, I'm so stubborn. Like my husband's always like, you're so stubborn. Just let me help you. But this like, no, I can do it.
I don't know anyone like that.
But yeah, I'll show you. And I really recognize when I jump into that ego fire, like I'm going to show you. But now I kind of have I lean into, I'm not okay and I need help with this. And just because I had built this, like I had a very strict father growing up, and I know he loved me the best way that he knew how, but I really recognized throughout my years, I had a lot of stories there about my relationship with him. And I definitely got the approval by being a great athlete, right? And then all this achievement, and I think that's more of a masculine, like men or women thing. And I don't think it was just the way he knew how, but that I would close off and I'll show you, fuck the world, right? I would just jump right into that, and then I'd close everyone off and not ask for help. And now it's like, okay, let's just take a deep breath. We don't need to feel that, right?
So what would you say would be like the number one? So for people who are like that, because I think many people kind of struggle with that, what would you say would be the number one tip that you've worked on the most to help overcome that? Yeah.
Breathe and take a moment, because I've really first you got to work on your triggers. So, I mean, I brought my journal just because I've literally got like 7 of these, but as soon as I talk to some of the kids that I coach, as soon as you feel triggered, I want you to answer, where are you? Who are you with? And what's the emotion that's coming up for you? Because what happens is it's usually your past trauma that is resurfacing by something that was said to you, right? It's not necessarily in this moment, my best friend said this, but I immediately want to punch you in the face.
Yeah.
I don't want to. I just had to love it. That made me laugh. But we get triggered all the time, right? As humans. And so it's like, okay, that's step 1. We need to do some introspection. You don't jump through these stages right away. The first part is like, let's just develop a little bit of self-awareness. Yeah. And now I can catch my triggers very quickly. And it's like, oh, okay, yep, just cut that. My husband will say something and it'll irk me to no end, but he's really triggering a part of me that I know I'm still working on, right?
Yeah.
So that is where the introspection starts and getting to know yourself. And I always tell people, if you don't know where to start with journaling, just Google journal prompts. Literally, there's a gazillion online.
So good.
And you can start writing, because a lot of people are like, well, where do I write? Where do I start?
Yeah. Where do I write? I don't know what to write. Yeah. I don't know I remember when I started my very first journal, and I share this with some of my clients, I go back and I look at it and it literally looks like it was written by a 4-year-old because I didn't know what to write. Right? I am grateful for my family. I am grateful for my house. That I have a place to, but a lot of people, we get this preconceived notion in our head that it needs to be this big, elaborate thing. So I love that you suggested journaling prompts, because it's such a great
Or if you're angry, rage on the page, get that shit out. That is why I really believe that's where health problems start. Every one of us is suffering in silence from something we know nothing about.
Yeah.
And especially with the athletes on my YouTube series. Oh man. I mean, substance abuse and drug abuse, suffering in silence, especially when you're someone who is a high achiever. You don't want the world to see that weaker side of you. And that's more ego covering up that mask. But there are people that want to help. There is community.
Yeah.
You are totally normal. You are human. Go to someone that you trust and have that conversation, or start privately in a book and burn it, but get it out, because right now your brain, I think about a filing cabinet, and you can't close the filing cabinet. There's all these papers. But in order we got to take all the paper out, then we get to pick and choose what stays, and the rest can go. So you get it out. You can, even just explaining that, I feel lighter, right? And you can visualize that. And that's what people do with their thoughts, but they don't
We talk, one of the most profound books that I've read in the last few years is a book called The Untethered Soul. And in The Untethered Soul, one of the things it talks about is that every emotion, every feeling we have it's an energy. And if you hold in that energy, I loved how your visual was even just, it bottles up and then it has to get expressed somehow. And it's expressed usually in unhealthy and negative ways.
Anger, substance abuse, whatever.
All those ways, right? And so one of the lessons that I've learned, one of the most, and it's really only been in the last year that I've mastered this to whatever degree you can master something, where when I have these emotions, I'm able to, that's interesting is the exact words that I say. It's what it's my trigger to move into that space, and I can let that emotion flow out, whether it's through writing it out or talking, whatever it is, let it out. Now I can identify it and I can do something about it. And it's just getting it to that point. So I love what you're saying.
Well, that's what you'll notice on the back of these tokens. It says, stay curious and keep listening. So the curiosity part is get curious around your reactions. And the listening part is listening to those internal nudges.
I got one more question for you, because we're going to start to land the plane here. And I got a question for you. What does living richly mean to you? When you hear
being
that
authentic
language?
To yourself, saying no when you think you should say yes, declining, anything that doesn't, like my bankruptcy. I said yes to a second studio, even though viscerally it was saying no. So, and my wish for people is, just keep showing up. You're going through some shit. You have literally everything that you need. It's just go into that season of silence. It's okay to disappear for a year. The world will not miss you as much as you think it is, or you won't miss the world, I should say, or you won't miss the FOMO of the post or whatever. Seriously, you'll come back stronger than ever and surpass all your friends. Not that we're in competition. See, that athlete wanted to come right out there.
That's awesome. I thank you. Thank you, Janine, for being here on the show. I have no doubt that we will want to have you back and really to unpack a lot more stuff. For those of you that have been listening, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be tuning in on this episode. We want to encourage you, just as we always do, to make sure that you like and share this episode with those that you think it will really support and resonate with. Encourage you to do that. You can come to our website, livingrichlly.me, where you'll find all kinds of other resources. We're going to have all the links to how you can connect to Janine. All of that will be in the show notes, so you'll be able to find all of that there as well. Just again, thank you so much for taking the time to be a part of this, and I encourage you to continue to live your best life.